When my mom said, "Come early, we'll celebrate," I didn't expect my little girl to be graded like a subscription plan. I'm standing here, looking at this dinner table with color-coded name tags, and one of them, reads Basic Tier Guest in my mother's perfect cursive handwriting. My 6-year-old daughter's name is underneath it. Ella, Basic Tier Guest. I thought it was a joke. I really did. Until they laughed. Until my own family looked at that tag and laughed like it was the funniest thing they'd ever seen. My name is Leah Turner. I'm 34 years old. I work as a graphic technician, and I've spent my entire adult life being the peacemaker of this family, the one who smooths things over, the one who makes things work, the one who stays quiet because I believed, God, I actually believed, that staying quiet could hold a family together. Turns out, silence just keeps the cracks invisible. I used to be soft-spoken. I used to avoid conflict like it was a disease I might catch. I always made things work no matter what it cost me, no matter how much of myself I had to sacrifice. I thought that was love. I thought that was what families did for each other. I was wrong about so many things. The call came on a Tuesday morning. Mom's voice was all sugar and excitement, the way it gets when she's planning something she thinks is wonderful. "Leah, honey, you'll come early on Sunday, right? It's a family milestone, something really special." No details, never any details with her. Just that expectation that I'll drop everything and show up, ready to smile and nod and play along with whatever performance she's orchestrated this time. David hesitated when I told him. My partner knows my family better than I wish he did. He's seen the aftermath of too many special occasions. But Ella was bouncing around the kitchen, excited about cake at Grandma's. And how do you explain to a 6-year-old that Grandma's love comes with conditions she's too young to understand? So we went. We always go. The house looked perfect, like it always does. Suburban perfection with its polished surfaces and lemon-scented air that never quite masks the forced laughter echoing from room to room. Everything in its place, everyone playing their assigned roles. Except this time, the roles were literal, written out on little cards: premium, standard, basic tier. My sister Nora got premium, of course. She always does. Dad got standard, the dutiful patriarch, neither favored nor forgotten. And there, at the end of the table, two little cards side by side. Basic tier guest for my daughter, and nothing at all for me. Nothing. Like I wasn't even worth categorizing. Mom saw me staring and waved her hand dismissively. "It's just organization, honey. The little ones don't eat much anyway." Her smile was bright and brittle, the same smile she's used to paper over family dysfunction my entire life. They laughed. My father, my sister, my uncle, my aunt, they all laughed like it was the most clever thing they'd ever seen. Like reducing my child to a tier of service was peak comedy. Ella picked up her card and sounded out the words carefully. "Basic tier guest? Mommy, what does that mean?" I felt something snap inside me. Not break, snap. Like a rubber band stretched too far, too long, finally reaching its limit. But I stayed composed. I always stay composed. I kept my voice low, my eyes sharp, my smile frozen in place. "It means Grandma thinks she's being funny, sweetheart." "Don't make it a scene, Leah." Dad's voice carried that familiar warning, the same tone he used when I was 8 and dared to cry when they forgot my birthday. Again. I squeezed Ella's hand twice. Our secret signal. "You're safe. I've got you." But standing there, watching my family treat my daughter like she was worth less than the adults, like she was some kind of discount addition to their perfect gathering, I realized something that should have been obvious years ago. I wasn't safe. I'd never been safe, and if I didn't start fighting back, neither would she. Let me tell you about the history of unequal love in the Turner family. Let me tell you about 26 years of keeping score while pretending score didn't matter. Nora has always been building something big. That's the family phrase for it. She's had 17 different business ventures since college. 17. A food truck that never served food. A boutique that sold exactly 3 items in 8 months. A wellness coaching certification she never used, a cryptocurrency mining operation that consisted of one old laptop in her basement. And every single time, when her latest dream crumbled, guess who got the call? Leah, I just need a little help until next week, just to get back on my feet. You know I'm good for it. I bailed her out of a failed catering business. Twice. I paid her rent when the food truck dream died. I covered her car payments when the boutique went under. I funded her wellness certification course. I even gave her money for the cryptocurrency equipment. Equipment that now sits collecting dust while she moves on to whatever new obsession has caught her attention. The parents loved it. They praised her entrepreneurial spirit, her willingness to take risks, her refusal to give up on her dreams. They called her brave. They called her innovative. They called her inspiring. They called me responsible, reliable, the one they could count on. Do you know what it feels like to be praised for being a bank? To have your worth measured in your ability to fund other people's failures? I kept a spreadsheet once. Every loan, every bailout, every just until next week that turned into forever. The total was significant. More than my car cost. More than my emergency fund had ever been. But they said family doesn't keep score. They said love isn't about money. They said I was being petty for even thinking about it. Somehow, though, my balance was always due. My accounts were always the ones that needed to be empty for the family to stay whole. Standing at that dinner table, looking at my daughter's basic tier tag, 26 years of financial and emotional manipulation came flooding back. Every time I said yes when I should have said no. Every time I transferred money I couldn't afford to transfer. Every time I swallowed my anger and smiled and played the role of the generous sister, the reliable daughter, the family bank. Every time I let them reduce my worth to what I could provide for them. So I did something I'd never done before. I reached over and removed Ella's tag. I flipped it over and wrote one word on the back in my own handwriting. Enough. I placed it face down next to her plate. That's when they started the pitch. "We're launching a family enterprise," Nora announced, her voice full of that familiar enthusiasm that always preceded another request for money. "Everyone invests according to their ability. It's going to be revolutionary, a subscription service for personalized family experiences." The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd literally created a tier system for dinner and now wanted to monetize family connection. "You're our financial rock, Leah," Mom added, her smile sharp as glass. "We know we can count on you to make this dream a reality." And that's when I said it. The words I'd been swallowing for decades. "No, I'm done funding love." The room went silent, not the comfortable quiet of contentment, but the heavy silence that comes when someone breaks an unspoken rule, when someone refuses to play their assigned role. The silence was heavier than shouting would have been. It was the sound of a family system grinding to a halt because one of its essential components had finally refused to function. The texts started the next day, a flood of them. "You embarrassed us in front of everyone." "You've changed, and not for the better." "David is controlling you. This isn't who you used to be." Family means sacrifice. We're disappointed in your selfishness. How could you ruin such a special occasion? We're just trying to build something together, and you're tearing it down. Message after message, each one designed to make me feel guilty for finally setting a boundary. Each one proof that they'd never seen me as a person with needs and limits, just as a resource to be managed. I sat at my computer that night and opened a file I'd maintained for years. Family transfers, DAC SX, every loan documented, every amount tracked, every promise to pay back recorded and color-coded by how overdue it was. Red meant more than a year. Most of the spreadsheet was red. I selected all the data, and I deleted it. It didn't erase what they owed me. Money doesn't just disappear because you stop tracking it, but it erased what I owed them. It erased the proof of my worth measured in dollars transferred and favors granted. It erased the evidence of my value calculated in how much financial pain I was willing to absorb for the sake of family peace. It erased the part of me that thought love could be purchased with silence. The weeks that followed were quiet in a way I'd never experienced. Real quiet, not the tense absence of conflict, but the peaceful presence of boundaries respected. I spent evenings repairing old electronics, a hobby I'd abandoned years ago because family emergencies always took priority. I read Ella bedtime stories without checking my phone for financial SOS messages. I discovered what it felt like to have money in my account at the end of the month. I rediscovered peace, real peace, the kind that doesn't require constant vigilance or preemptive financial sacrifice. 3 weeks later, Mom called again. Her voice had that familiar sugar coating, but underneath it was something harder. Desperate, maybe. "Sunday dinner, honey. The family really misses you. We can work through this little misunderstanding." Little misunderstanding. As if decades of financial exploitation could be dismissed as a communication error. I didn't reply. For the first time in my adult life, I simply didn't respond to a family summons. Instead, I spent that Sunday morning painting with Ella. Watercolors spread across our kitchen table, our hands stained blue and purple and gold. She painted a rainbow over a house with 3 windows. I painted a tree with deep roots and broad branches. My phone buzzed with another message. "Final chance to reinvest in the family business. Don't let pride destroy what we've built together." I looked at the message and laughed. Actually laughed, not the bitter laugh of someone who's given up, but the light laugh of someone who's finally free. I turned the phone face down and picked up my paintbrush. "Maybe they'll finally learn to fund their own peace," I said to Ella, who was too absorbed in her art to really listen, but nodded anyway. She held up her painting for me to see. 3 stick figures with enormous smiles, standing in front of a house that was somehow both crooked and perfect. "That's us, Mommy, our family." Our family. Not the extended network of obligation and resentment I'd been tethered to my whole life, but this small, complete unit of people who chose each other every day. People who didn't need to buy love because they gave it freely. I used to think I was the glue holding my family together. I thought my silence, my sacrifice, my endless financial generosity was what kept us connected. I thought if I stopped giving, stopped accommodating, stopped absorbing everyone else's poor decisions, the whole structure would collapse. I was right. It did collapse. And that's when I realized it was never a family structure worth preserving. Real love doesn't require subscription tiers. Real love doesn't categorize children as basic or premium. Real love doesn't measure your worth by your bank balance or your willingness to fund other people's dreams at the expense of your own stability. Real love sees you as whole, as valuable, as worthy of respect, whether your pockets are full or empty. I spent 34 years learning that lesson, 34 years thinking I had to earn love by paying every bill, solving every crisis, absorbing every failure that wasn't even mine to absorb. I spent 34 years financing pain and calling it family loyalty. But here's what I know now. What I wish I could go back and tell that 8-year-old girl whose birthday everyone forgot. Love isn't earned by paying every bill. Sometimes the richest thing you can do is stop financing pain. Sometimes the most generous gift you can give your family is refusing to enable their dysfunction. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away from people who only love what you can provide for them. The tag that started it all, Basic Tier Guest, is still in my purse. I kept it as a reminder, not of the hurt, but of the moment I finally chose my daughter's dignity over my family's comfort. The moment I chose my own worth over their expectations. The moment I learned that sometimes the most profound act of love is refusing to let yourself be reduced to a subscription plan. Ella's painting is on our refrigerator now, held up by magnets we bought together at the craft store. 3 people, smiling, complete. A family that doesn't need outside investors or premium memberships or tier-based love. A family that funds itself on respect, boundaries, and the wild revolutionary idea that everyone at the table deserves to be treated with dignity. Even the 6-year-olds, especially the 6-year-olds. My phone has been quiet for days now. No emergency requests, no guilt-laden messages, no desperate pleas for financial rescue. Part of me wonders if they've finally learned to solve their own problems or if they've just found someone else to subsidize their chaos. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. I'm learning what it feels like to be worth more than my bank account balance. I'm learning what it feels like to say no without immediately calculating the cost of my refusal. I'm learning what it feels like to love people without also being their financial safety net. I'm learning what it feels like to be free. The funny thing about freedom is that it doesn't feel like what you expect. I thought it would feel like victory, like vindication, like the sweet satisfaction of finally being right after years of being wrong. Instead, it feels like quiet Sunday mornings with paint-stained fingers. It feels like bedtime stories that don't get interrupted by crisis calls. It feels like looking at my daughter and knowing she's learning that love doesn't have conditions, doesn't have tears, doesn't have a price tag. It feels like peace. Simple, uncomplicated peace. The kind of peace you can't buy, no matter how much you're willing to spend. The kind of peace that comes from finally understanding that you are not responsible for funding other people's happiness at the expense of your own. The kind of peace that comes from realizing that family isn't about blood or obligation or shared financial responsibility. Family is about who shows up for you without expecting payment, who celebrates your children without categorizing them, who loves you not for what you can provide, but for who you are when you have nothing left to give. I have that now. Small as it is, imperfect as it might be, I have that, and I'm never giving it up again. Not for anyone. Not for any amount of guilt or manipulation or family obligation. Not even for the people who taught me to confuse love with payment plans, especially not for them. Because the most expensive lesson I ever learned was this: the richest life you can live is the one where love is free, boundaries are respected, and nobody gets to reduce you to a tier of service. Not even family, especially not family. The basic tier guest tag is still in my purse, faded now from being handled, but still readable. Sometimes I take it out and look at it, not with anger anymore, but with something like gratitude. Gratitude for the moment that finally broke me free. Gratitude for the insult so blatant, so cruel, so perfectly illustrative of everything wrong with my family dynamic that I couldn't rationalize it away, or smooth it over, or pretend it didn't matter. Gratitude for the wake up call I'd been needing for 26 years. Because sometimes the most valuable gift someone can give you is showing you exactly who they are. And sometimes the most valuable thing you can do with that gift is believe them and walk away with your head high, your dignity intact, and your wallet closed forever. That's the story of how I learned to stop financing pain and started investing in peace. That's the story of how a dinner table name tag changed my life. That's the story of how I finally learned that love, real love, doesn't come with subscription fees, and that sometimes the richest thing you can do is refuse to pay for something that should have been free all along.